Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Jashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamanatira Vana Chadi Jamanatira Vana Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamana Tiravana Chadi Jamana Tiravana Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivitagacharya Astatara Satasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaura Premanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Continuing, as you see on the screen here, Canto 11, Chapter 9, texts 17 and 18. We're learning from a snake, or we're learning from an Avadhuta Brahmana who has learned from a snake. And what we heard yesterday is the snake keeps to himself for different reasons. And so a renunciate, if you're going to be a Jnani type of renunciate, you have to keep to yourself, solitary living. And we heard from the previous guru, the girl with the bangles, that that solitary life for a Vaishnav means sticking close to the association of devotees and being cautious about the other kind of association. So here's text. Wait a minute here. There we go. It's 1516. My mistake. Text 1516. For the living entities who possess perishable material bodies, that's pretty much all of us, building a house is miserable and useless if you're an Avaduta Brahmin. A snake enters a hole created by others and lives happily. The BBT purport reads, the snake does not have the proclivity to build his own home, but rather lives in a suitable place constructed by other creatures. Thus, he does not entangle himself in the labor of home building. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur points out that although materialistic persons take unlimited pains to invent and mass-produce electricity, automobiles, airplanes, etc., ultimately these things are meant for the convenience of the Vaishnavas who are preaching Krishna consciousness. The karmis will always go to such trouble, and the devotees will always offer such laborious productions to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by engaging them in His loving service. The devotees, being concerned with the ultimate perfection of life, do not personally struggle for material advancement. On the other hand, there is no need for the devotees to artificially imitate the austere lifestyle of ancient times. A devotee's goal is simply to serve Krishna as nicely as possible, semicolon. Therefore, the devotees willingly accept beautiful mansions and all types of material opulences, not with any personal attachment, but only so that these things can be engaged in loving service of the Lord. If one engages such things with a desire to enjoy them, one falls down from the platform of pure devotional service. Materialistic persons are only interested in exploiting their so-called yoga practice in order to rejuvenate their sexual potency or to vainly remember their previous conditioned lives. Thus, applying mysticism to the endless search for sense gratification, they do not understand the actual goal of human life. And here's Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's purport. Because the snake does not build its own house, but occupies a dwelling constructed by others, it does not become entangled in the miseries of building a residence. The ass-like people of this world have accepted a great burden by providing electric lights, vehicles, fans, and so on for the Vaishnavas. And they should continue to do so. Because Vaishnavas are travelers on the path of spiritual life, they do not carry the great burden of material advancement because they abstract the essence of life. They do not undergo great inconvenience just for the comfort of their bodies, but instead live in a world built by others without becoming attached to it. Expertise in the act of renovation and preserving one's family and society traditions is not the goal of those who travel on the path of spiritual life. Interesting sentence, huh? I'll speak a little bit on that. There are different injunctions. The scriptural ones are the stronger ones, and the traditions are less strong. Doesn't mean the less strong ones are zero, but it's not the primary force. Because we're observing Ram Navami tomorrow, let me just go there for a little bit, the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra. Did Dasarath understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? That Ramachandra is Lord Vishnu? Well, yes and no. Authoritatively, according to Valmiki Ramayana, he heard directly from Parshuram that Ramachandra is Vishnu. And even specifically, the killer of the Madhu demon at the beginning of creation, the Lord of all gods. That was an utterance by Parshuram when Ram strung the bow, etc., the bow of Vishnu. Dasarath heard it. So what happened? Well, we can assume that he forgot it. And, the means of forgetting such a thing is the Yogamaya potency, because in the case of Dasarath, like in the case of Yasoda and Nanda, for example, he was so intimately connected with Ram in the mood of parental affection, he forgot it. He had to have forgotten it. He had to have forgotten it, because otherwise how could the rest of the Leela play out? He left his body due to separation. Anyway, the internal potency acts wonders, and it's possible to know something and then forget that something. Aside from us, we know, and then we forget because of Mahamaya, and Dasarath knew, but it became eclipsed by his strong paternal affection, or Vatsalya rasa. Now, in Krishna's pastimes, Krishna was questioning Nanda Maharaj. The yagya for Indra, is it scripturally enjoined or is it family tradition? Because if it's family tradition, it doesn't carry the same weight. And if it's scripturally enjoined, then please inform me of the purpose behind the yagya, because without knowing the purpose behind the yagya, any karma kanda ritual, you have to know the purpose behind it. And if you don't know the purpose behind it, well, according to Rupa Goswami, it can be a cause of blocking bhakti. Or you won't get the full result if you don't know the purpose behind a yagya. So in Ram's pastimes, because we've been immersing ourselves in hearing Ram's pastimes, the family tradition is a big deal. In Krishna's discussion with Arjuna, it's a big deal. And in modern times, who cares? The secondary purposes are washed away, but to speak of the primary. But so it's not a zero. Tradition within a religious family is not a zero. Now let's do the application in our modern circumstance. In the modern circumstance, we all, and anyone who has dealt with newer devotees, whether it's Western or Indian origin devotee, any person, any civilized person has some system of religion. Say it negatively. Without some system of religion, it's not human life. So in human life, there's some system. So we all grew up, and everybody that we meet grew up with something. And it's always a challenge or something to cross over that tradition, because I used to do this and that, or my grandmother did this and that. I don't know why grandmother did this and that, or the family that, for Western people, that grew up in such and such family, and we had these practices and beliefs and traditions. So now what? You become a devotee. Or, pardon me, but when Christmas time comes around, how many in Houston, how many families put a Christmas tree in their home? I know in the North, Indian families that are practicing devotees, a lot of them put a Christmas tree in their home and decorate and, and everything. And put Christmas gifts under the tree and all of that for their kids, so the kids don't feel like I'm a misfit. I guess that's one of the reasons. In stockings with the candy hanging out of the red stocking for Santa Claus to put stuff in the stocking, and the whole thing, the whole American culture. So there's what are we to do? Let's go back to the first one. What are we to do? I just read the sentence. Expertise in the act of renovation and preserving one's family or society traditions is not the goal of those who travel on the path of spiritual life. Now, he's not just speaking about Avadhuta Brahmins or those that are abject renunciates. It's a general statement. So what do we do? And of course, there's liberals and there's conservatives and there's moderates. There's different people do different things. So it's not like this is right, and if this is right, then that's wrong. We don't live a life like that. Those who are practicing have faith. They have faith in something that they used to do, but the main support for where they're going is faith in the goal of whatever it was that they were doing. What's the goal of whatever it is what they were doing? Quite likely, they didn't know. I know I didn't know. And it was an existential dilemma. Once I had, put both feet in the Hare Krishna boat and then started thinking, whoops, have I abandoned the tradition that am I, anyway, a bad person? Am I disrespectful to the tradition from which I came, or disrespectful to Christ and my family and all that? It was a challenge. So everyone goes through that, most likely, to some degree or another. And to gradually move towards Krishna is our only shelter. Two of the principles of taking shelter that are taught in Valmiki Ramayana and the commentaries is akinchanatvam, akinchanatvam, having no other shelter, and ananyagatitvam, Krishna is my only shelter. I have you to take full shelter of Krishna, you have to let go of the other shelters. Now, to let go of the other shelter doesn't mean you trash family tradition. It says you may continue for the sake of not disturbing others, but the heart goes to ananyagatitvam. And those other things are not, as bhakti matures, as the surrendering process matures, then there's only one shelter. And in fact, there's only one shelter. But realization of that is a matter of heart or a matter of faith, and it takes some time to have faith mature. So one is not encouraged to just whimsically go from 0 to 100, or impulsively make a big jump. Unless one really has that kind of faith, it's not recommended. Recommended is you make steps according to your capacity. And these 3 chapters are dealing with knowledge and renunciation. So in general, it's incremental. But there's a standard, and the standard is attachment to Krishna and detachment from the rest. So Bhaktisiddhanta is including this maintaining social custom and family tradition. That's not the goal. One may do some of those things so that there's stability in your own heart and stability in the relations with those that you have. But the goal is not that. As the goal is understood, identified, and you associate with those that are mature and that are balanced and wise, they'll help you transition from where you are to where you want to go, and not where it's like cathartic, but it's it's a gradual progress in bhakti. That's an application of the snake example here. Let's go to text 16. Text 16 is still on the snake topic, but it moves into philosophy more. Here we go. Text 16. The Lord of the universe, Narayana. Now this is the Brahmin speaking to King Yadu. Narayana is the worshipable God of all living entities. Without extraneous assistance, the Lord creates this universe by his own potency. And at the time of annihilation, the Lord destroys the universe through his personal expansion of time and withdraws all the cosmos, including all the conditioned living entities, within himself. Thus, his unlimited self, with a capital S, is the shelter and reservoir of all potencies. The subtle pradhan, the basis of all cosmic manifestation, is conserved within the Lord and is in this way not different from him. In the aftermath of annihilation, the Lord stands alone. So we're going to, a little bit this morning and tomorrow, a whole bunch, touch on the philosophy, the Paramatma Sandarbha. Jiva Goswami likes this verse, and we'll learn a lot. It's a little, technical, but that's what the verse is. It's an important verse in Krishna's teaching to Uddhava, or the Avadhuta Brahman's teaching to King Yadu. Here's Bhaktisiddhanta's paraphrased translation. Narayana is the worshipable Lord of the universe, and of all the living entities contained therein. Working independently, the Lord creates the cosmic manifestation by directing his potency. To enact the annihilation of the universe, the Lord employs his personal expansion, time, thus withdrawing everything to remain within himself. Thus, the Lord is the reservoir of all potencies. The pradhan, which is the cause of the cosmic manifestation. Note, there's different ways of viewing the cause of the cosmic manifestation. One is the material energy itself, and the other is the reservoir of the material energy, etc. The material cause is the energy, and the one who oversees the material energy, material cause. Called Upadan Maya and Nimitta Maya. We'll get there, probably tomorrow. The pradhan, which is the cause of the cosmic manifestation, is conserved within the Lord and thus is not different from him. After the annihilation of the universe, the Lord alone exists as one without a second. Sound familiar? It's the first of the Chaturshloki verses of the Bhagavatam, the celebrated Aham Eva Sameva Agre, before creation I alone exist, during cosmic manifestation I alone exist, after annihilation I alone exist. So that's the oneness feature of all things in relation to the source. BBT purport, as will be explained in verse 21 of this chapter, we're not there yet, the Lord's independent creation and annihilation of the universe can be compared to the spiders creating and withdrawing his web. The word eka, or one alone, is mentioned twice in this verse to emphasize that there is only one Supreme Personality of Godhead and that all universal affairs, as well as spiritual pastimes, are conducted by his potency alone. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, this verse refers to Karnadakshayi Vishnu, or Mahavishnu, lying in the causal ocean. The word Atmadhara and Akhilashraya both indicate that Narayana is the reservoir or shelter of all existence. Atmadhara indicates that the Lord's personal body is the shelter of everything. Atmadhara. Mahavishnu is a plenary portion of Lord Krishna, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whose body expands the innumerable potencies that manifest the spiritual and material worlds. According to Brahma Samhita, these innumerable worlds rest within the Brahmajyoti, or spiritual effulgence, also emanating from the Lord's body. Thus, Krishna is Ishvara, the supreme controller. So we're going to read just a little bit. This is Bhaktisiddhanta's paraphrasing of Vishwanath's commentary, and then we'll read Vishwanath's commentary. The Avadhuta Brahmana says, quote, I've learned from the spider how the Supreme Lord creates the universe. So apparently we left the snake and now we're on the spider. Guru. I've learned from the spider how the Supreme Lord creates the universe. Lord Narayan alone, without any help, creates the universes by his manipulating his energies under the control of time and then annihilated them. After the annihilation, the Lord remained as one without a second. All the conditioned living entities, as well as the material energies, became merged within the Lord. Thus, he is the shelter of all energies. Vishwanath writes, he, Avadhuta Brahmana, learned from the spider how the Lord carries out creation and destruction of the universe. This is explained in 6.5 verses. Karnadakshayi Vishnu alone, without assistance other than his own Shaktis, withdraws the universe by his time Shakti. He alone exists, since nothing exists outside of the Lord. Nothing existed since the total universe and its parts were all destroyed. He is his own support, Atmadhara. He is the shelter of all Shaktis. And last is Jiva Goswami's Kramasandarbha commentary on this verse. The translation he's presented this way. The one form of Vishnu withdraw the universe previously created by his Maya through his time Shakti at the end of Brahma's life and remained alone the support of himself and shelter of all his Shaktis. Paragraph. The Lord is Narayana, called the creator of the Mahatattva. He is the one antaryami of the whole universe. Well, of all universes. He is the one person. There is no other creator with his powers, ekaha. At the beginning of the kalpa, the creation took place by Maya, his Shakti, whose portion is time. At the end of the kalpa, he withdraws the universe, semicolon. Everything takes shelter of him, acting as a place of destruction. There are no jivas differentiated at that time with separate consciousness. What? There are no jivas differentiated at that time with separate consciousness, meaning they're in the state of susupti. They're not manifesting consciousness. There is no differentiation of pradhan, which is very different from him, avitiyaha. He was the container of all the lords of Mahavaikuntha, Atma Dharaha. He had entered the spiritual world. That's Jiva Goswami's Krama Sandarbha. The stories were really nice, but now it's all this heavy philosophy. But this is Krishna's teaching, so we are following along with Krishna's teaching. And get ready for, it won't be tomorrow, it'll be the day after tomorrow. We'll hear Paramatma Sandarbha, and Jiva Goswami really likes this verse. And this whole series, 6.5 verses, specific to Paramatma Sandarbha. So a few things, and I'll show you some nice images and we'll discuss. One is, elsewhere Jiva Goswami explains that this example of the spider is limited, because while the spider, there's more than one place in the Bhagavatam, the spider from his mouth, saliva, makes a web, goes and moves around the web, withdraws the web back into his body. So Vishnu is compared like that. However, the spider has to eat something. Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai. The spider has to eat something, but Vishnu doesn't have to eat anything. It's not something outside of himself that permits him to do the creation. Whereas a spider, something outside of himself permits him to create create a web. So it's a limited, but it gives a nice picture. It does come from him. The web comes from the spider. But Krishna is totally independent, Swarat. Another is this feature of time. We hear several places in the Bhagavatam about the role of time in the process of creation. When in the process of creation, there's actually three things, but time and the living entities are entrusted to the glance of Vishnu and carried to Pradhan by Shambhu. Because you don't have creation without time. Time as we know it. But then there's eternal time. And where's eternal time rest? Eternal time is one of the Shaktis of Ramadevi, or ultimately one of the Shaktis of the Supreme Lord. And thus, time I am. But so there's eternal time, and then it becomes transferred or transformed. Shakti becomes transformed for the purpose of creation to time as we know it. And that time energy agitates Pradhan, and we get creation, the living entities and time. So if you're going to be a creator, you have to know how to use time. And if you're going to be an annihilator, you have to know how to use time. It's really simple. You just pull the plug. Vishnu withdraws his time potency and the whole thing collapses because it moves on time. It's created, it's maintained, and it's withdrawn by time energy. Because actually, their time is eternal. Right? Time is eternal. But time as we know it isn't eternal. So it's, pardon me while I go over to left field for a moment. I particularly like one of the teachings that Jiva Goswami presents in Tattva Sundarbha about time. And he deals with the Shanak Vada Buddhists. Shanak means momentariness. And the Buddhists say there's only one reality in this realm, and that's the moment. Shanakvad. And so their practice and their teaching is be in the moment, be present, mindfulness, etc. All of those modern terminologies, they're Buddhist derived. And Jiva Goswami dismantles it in a very interesting way. It's too complex for this morning class. But time is actually eternal. There's temporary time, and there's, you stack up temporary moments and you get, what do you get? Well, if it's all there is the moment, there's nothing that the time that's passed is gone, the one that's happened isn't happening. All there is the moment. And their goal, listen carefully, is be in the moment, be in the moment, be in the moment, and then you go on the other side of the moment. And what's there? Nothing. Nirvana. So enlightenment is to go beyond the moment by practicing being in the moment. Pretty cool, huh? But the Vaishnava understanding is time is an energy of the energetic. It's useful for those that have material desires to use time for fulfilling the material desire. And the solution is not just stabbing desire to death and making yourself void, but it's to spiritualize desire or to remove ignorance so that you have spiritual desire. And that's what these teachings are meant for, is to knowledge and detachment. Knowledge is the antidote for ignorance. And with that antidote of knowledge comes transcendence, the removal of ignorance. So here is the first time in the verses, all this whole section where the Avadhuta Brahmana is speaking directly about Narayan. Now, a little bit earlier, the Pingala, the prostitute, spoke about the Lord in the heart. And she wanted to be exclusively devoted to the Lord in the heart. So there's some indication. But otherwise, it's like heaps and piles of knowledge that's the antidote for ignorance, and thus detachment, knowledge and detachment, jnana vairagya, but for the purpose of knowing Krishna or taking shelter of Krishna. So now, Mahavishnu, or the original source of everything, which is Vedanta, comes out of a box. He's now sharing with King Yadu what he knows. Now, question, how can you know that without association of one who knows that? How can bhakti awaken without the association of a bhakta? It's explicitly stated It's explicitly stated in the earlier sections that this Avadutta Brahmana did not have a formal relationship of Shiksha Guru, Diksha Guru, but he learned from these various sources. So how's that possible? Well, one answer is he's Lord Vishnu. He's Dattatreya. So but even the Lord hears from somebody. Ram had a guru, and Krishna had a guru, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had a guru. So why Dattatreya doesn't have a guru? So he must have heard from someone. And it's, studied the Vedas, because this is Vedic understanding of the process of creation. You have to hear. Now, in Leela, so who was Dattatreya the son of? Huh? Anasuya. And Atri. We can assume he heard from Atri and Anasuya. And we can assume that they understood the Vedas. When the request was made to have a son, it was the son. The request was all three appeared, and we like a son. So they received a partial incarnation of all three, and Dattatreya is a partial incarnation of Vishnu. But so Atri and Anasuya trained him. That much we can understand. It's similar to tomorrow morning. We're going to hear from Valmiki Ramayana about a history before it happened of how Dasrath would have 4 sons. He heard it. Sumantra heard it from a conversation between the 4 Kumaras and Rishis before it happened. And actually in a previous yuga, in Satya Yuga, somehow the life of Sumantra spanned into a previous yuga. Somehow that happened. But where did the 4 Kumaras hear it? Of history before it happens. How do you know time before it happens? They had to have heard from their father, Lord Brahma. So we'll hear tomorrow morning. Lord Brahma is the origin of Ramayana. 1 million verses. 1 million verses. Brahma's Ramayana, who he taught comprehensively to Narada. Narada gave a synopsis to Valmiki. Valmiki wrote it. But where did the 4 Kumaras get this history before it happened? From some source. Now, where did Brahma get it? Tene Brahma Hrida Adikam. So the principle, I'm getting a little distracted by a principle away from the story, but knowledge and detachment has a purpose, and to have it really effective, to have it sustainable, or not just now you see it, now you don't. It has to be supported by this disciplic succession method, must be. Now let's go to Shruti Mangara's nice illustrations. You see the serpent, and I guess what's in the middle there is the hole that they're going to go live in. And here's what she's illustrating from text 15. When a person living in a temporary material body tries to construct a happy home, the result is fruitless and miserable. The snake, however, enters a home that has been built by others and prospers happily. Here's another. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur points out that although materialistic persons take unlimited pains to invent and mass produce electricity, automobiles, airplanes, etc., ultimately, these things are meant for the convenience of the Vaishnavas who are preaching Krishna consciousness. The karmis will always go to such trouble, and the devotees will always offer such laborious productions to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by engaging them in his loving service. Just a pause. These home visits, many, if not most, are in Katy. And I was asking yesterday evening, where do people that live in Katy work? Many of them work in the city. So why do they live so far away? Well, good schools and new homes. So I know somebody who is contemplating, nice devotee, family, not in Houston, somewhere, and they're planning to build a new home. So wait a minute. The Avadhuta Brahmana is saying, don't go to that trouble. But if you're going to go to that trouble, because people do want a new home, so those people that live in Katy or wherever they are that have a nice new home, dedicate it to Krishna service. It's similar to the girl with the bangles. She had many. She removed several of them, leaving two, and then she removed all but one. So the devotees don't have to worry about many bangles. The devotees don't need to worry. Vaishnavas don't need to worry about building a new home. But they need to worry about dedicating it to Krishna service. New home or used home. It's not like you're better if you buy a used home and you're somewhere in, 10th class if you buy and build a new home. The real essence is dedication to the personality of Godhead. Now, this time energy, using time properly, using dravya, using stuff properly. The art is the dedication of all things. That's what this section is going to teach us. Carrying forward. One more nice image, and that's it for this morning. The Lord of the universe, Narayana, is the worshipable God of all living entities. Without extraneous assistance, the Lord creates this universe by his own potency. And at the time of annihilation, the Lord destroys the universe through his personal expansion of time and withdraws all the cosmos, including all the conditioned living entities within himself. Thus, his unlimited self is the shelter and reservoir of all potencies. So fantastic graphics, huh? She's good. Let's see if there's some discussion. We're already at 8:26. And do we have a portable microphone somewhere? Anybody want to share something?
Hey, Maharaj, good to see you. The attachment a person has when they get so involved in building a home, or they have to live somewhere, and Krishna has to provide something for them if they're surrendering to Krishna. So isn't it feasible that a Vaishnava could build whatever nice residence he wants and use it particularly for Krishna without becoming attached, thinking this is mine and that is yours?
Yes. The trick is don't be attached. And how the trick works is Krishna is the enjoyer. Prabhupada spoke about that with, our nice temples, but don't be the enjoyer, we're servants. He would speak in these terms: it's a base to send our army out for preaching. No, look around. I mean, this is an opulent temple room. And it took a lot of time and a lot of money to make this opulent temple room. So maybe we shouldn't have opulent temple rooms because we might become enjoyers of it. That's a risk. And then if we become enjoyers of it, we become complacent and bhakti goes out the window. We look at ourselves saying, we've got a nice temple. Anyway, it's the mode of service. Dasya bhakti is our protection. And Dasya bhakti means these are the facilities of home, whatever. A car, whatever, a computer, all this technology here is for Krishna service. That's the protection. Anything else? Yes? Sarva, you have something?
Like in ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada established the GBC, which sort of, rather than one acharya that might feel like the proprietor of the movement, somehow the GBC situation seems to allow for devotees to share in the responsibility of Krishna consciousness, and it seems like it would foster not being too attached to the things of the movement, but to the service. Just a comment.
I understood about 25% of what you said. I'm sure it was meaningful. And since it's sharing, it may be not important that I understand it, but there may be other people. Could somebody repeat what he just said? Sarva, your voice is a little weak and stuff. So can somebody restate it? Krishna Kripa, can you restate what he said? Did you follow what he said? 25%, another 20. Can you try it again? Hold it like this, like you're eating an ice cream or something.
In the Gaudiya Math,
In the Gaudiya Math,
the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati tried to avoid his followers to get attached.
Becoming proprietors of their
Yeah,
temples.
but Prabhupada established the GBC. Can you comment on that in terms of?
You want me to comment on that?
If you
Well, the
want to.
GBC is not the proprietor.
Yeah.
Or say it negatively. If any individual or group of individuals think that they are proprietor, it's the same. Whether it's an acharya of a mat or the GBC collectively thinking they're the proprietors, that's Maya. They're not the proprietors. The deity is the proprietor, lawfully and philosophically, both. And the founder acharya, we say, because it was by his energy it was created. We may be instruments, but it's hit by his energy. So we can say, like the kingdom is the property of the king, but the king is doing so only on behalf of the Supreme. So the GBC may have a function of managing, but not proprietorship. So it's not a protection, not a fail-safe protection to go away from the acharya system to the GBC system if it comes to territorial misconceptions. let's see if there's something else. Anything online? Let's go online. Microphone up here. Mask.
So we have a message from. Does that work? We have a message from Uttam Bhaktadas.
Here, there's a wipe. Put the wipe over the speaking part and remove your mask, because I want to be able to hear what you're saying, and speak slowly.
So we have a message from Uttam Bhaktadas. He says, building modern machines makes life easy, but definitely
Modern what?
machines.
Modern what?
Machines
Machines. Modern machines. Okay.
makes life easy, but definitely contaminates air, water, food, earth, etc. How to see it properly?
How to do what?
See it properly.
How to see it properly. I'm looking at Radha Krishna. How to see it properly. We follow our founder Acharya, who knows how to see it properly. Or he was a follower of Bhaktisiddhanta. Bhaktisiddhanta and Prabhupada used cars and machines and things. And, does that mean we have we don't have to have any conscience because they did, we just follow blindly? Or do we have to have a conscience as we follow? My understanding goes like this, and there may be others that have different understandings, which is just fine. Utility is the principle. And when utilizing things, what is there in this world? Let's just take, that which we offer to the deities. We want to have that which is pure. Is it possible to get something that's pure? There was a period of time in Harikesha's zone, they were into this nothing is pure fanaticism. But so they, like, for example, whenever they made something with tomato sauce, they couldn't buy tomatoes in cans. They had to, their own tomatoes had to be organic tomatoes, and then make their own sauce. It's more labor, but everything in this world is contaminated. So you can move towards and utilize things with the purpose of being conscious of what negative impact is going to be there. But Prabhupada got on planes and did things he did for spreading Krishna consciousness because of the urgency. And he wasn't unconscious of, let's say, during Prabhupada's time, there was not ahimsa milk. He didn't say, don't offer milk to the deities, or devotees shouldn't take milk. I mean, this is a touchy territory for some people, but that's not what he did. Now, what should we do? We should engage in cow protection, but there was an evolving of bringing our communities to the stage where they could have projects that could maintain protected cows. And it's not a simple thing. Some temples went ahead and got farms and got cows and bulls, and then they couldn't maintain them because there was enthusiasm that faded. And then what do? It's a big problem. It's like being a parent and having children. Producing children, not a problem. Maintaining and training, that's another challenge, big one. So what to do in response to Uttam Bhakta, knowing that machines and other things that we do and touch our hands on, it's there's contamination to the earth and the air and water and stuff. We have to be conscious and use things in the purpose, with the purpose of spreading Krishna consciousness, but not just random and wanton. We have to be ecologically conscious, just like coming up real soon is Earth Day. I don't know if there's a plan here to do something on Earth Day, but it's a really good opportunity to spread Krishna consciousness on public events that there's Earth Day. Anyway, so what do? we utilize cautiously and consciously. A, with the purpose of spreading Krishna consciousness only. B, knowing that by doing this, there's some collateral damage because things are impure and the impact of on the earth in which we live has its impurity. So we go green, but that's not sufficient. What do? You minimize and maximize your Krishna conscious outreach. I mean, book publication. What about that? Cutting down trees and using whatever they use to make the papers so the paper lasts longer and toxic this and that, and we print books because the house is on fire. Anything else? That's it. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.